Julie here, and child OCD and anxiety, as you know, those of you who follow me, is something that's very close to my heart because my own teenage daughter was afflicted with it and became very, very ill, and it had a big impact on us as a whole family. Now, I decided to shoot this video today about child OCD because I'm becoming increasingly concerned about how this current pandemic is going to impact on child's mental health in the future, but in particular with OCD. Because I'm hearing cases of children as young as 6 years old who are scrubbing their hands until they're raw because they are so convinced that if they don't do that, that this germ or this virus or whatever you want to call it is going to actually do something terrible to them. Because let's be honest, it's very difficult, however much we try to protect our young people, it is very difficult today to balance it out because obviously they do have to wash their hands and be sensible, because the last thing we want is for them to actually catch it or to pass it on to vulnerable people such as grandparents. But on the other hand, we also have to balance it with the fact that we really do not want them to develop this as a part of their daily ritual where they think it's normal after the pandemic to have to wash their hands or to hand sanitize it or to wear masks, etc. So what can we do as parents, especially when there's children as young as 6 years old, feeling the need to wash their hands until they're practically raw? And how do we balance it that it doesn't become a ritual and a full-blown OCD? Well, if you go into my website, www.themindmonsters.co.uk, which I'll pop a link to at the bottom, I've actually got some free resources on there, including a workbook for children called Hank's Activity Book, and in that you can get them to draw a picture of Hank or to actually write a story about Hank and how they would overcome this monster named Hank who's living in their memory at the moment, telling them to do these things to keep themselves safe. Because from my own experience, from what I'm hearing from other people, when children can actually relate to what this monster looks like in their head as some character, it is easier for them to talk up to. Because in my book, Hank the Hungry Monster, which is due to be released on the 3rd of November, I actually share an advice and tip on how you can overcome, as it happens, washing hands by speaking up to the monster. Because we were told with our daughter by one of the counsellors that one of the ways to actually help with it and to combat child OCD is to actually, what they called, turn up the volume. So they're drowning out Hank's voices and noise in their head, and they're replacing it with positive thoughts as well, such as, I do not need to listen to this voice. I will be safe if I only wash my hands once and not 3 or 4 times. And I think this is where we need to start, particularly with young children, because this book is aimed at sort of the 5 to 8 age group, because my aim was to stop children or to advise parents on ways to stop children ever developing these rituals. But my understanding from feedback I'm getting is that children as young as 6 now are already developing these compulsions, these rituals, which is very, very concerning to me. So I think it's a case now of stopping them in their tracks. And one of the ways I highly recommend is obviously to purchase my book, because 50% of those proceeds will go on to CAMS, the Children and Adolescents Mental Health Services, who can help with children who sadly have gone too far down the track and these voices are taking over their head. But also to download the free resources that are on there. I've got 10 tips for anxiety, of combating anxiety for parents. That is a free resource. And I've also got a Hank activity sheet that's got all fun things to do, including, as I say, getting your child to write their own story. So that's not only going to help them with their academic side of things, especially with the unstable way the schools are operating at the moment. So that's a bit of an additional sort of help you can give them in their house with writing the story in a fun way. But it will also help them to try and combat these voices in their head, and for them to realise that they can only need to speak up to this Hank and say, no, I can wash my hands once and I'm safe. I do not need to do it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And hopefully, I pray that this will stop them from developing full-blown OCD. One tip I would offer, if your child can't think of how to do a story independently, either help them write a fun story together, or just get them to write a list of their own commands that they can send back to Hank and say, well, no, I'm not listening to you, Hank, because I don't need to wash him more than once, or whatever their command might be, or I'm not listening to you, Hank, or you're talking rubbish, Hank, or whatever they want to put it down as, because what it will do is start feeding the message to their brain to combat the voices of Hank telling them they have to do it and reassure them they won't need to do it. And I hope that makes sense. And as again, I'll put a link to my website, which is www.themindmonsters.co.uk. And I say feel free to download the free resources, and there's also facility to pre-order my book. I'd love you to read and give me your feedback. Thanks for now. That's it for today's video on child OCD and anxiety. Hope it's proved useful.